Hey everyone, it's so good to be here today. Welcome to our fifth monthly town hall, right? Today's theme is basically about owning your story, right? It's about confidence, identity, and growth in tech, right? So last month was actually about mental health, and I think it's a really great segue into building using your background, your personal story, and your unique identity as a strength and asset, in this tech field, right? So yeah, this month's session is all about, turning doubt, right, into drive. Like if you're joining over here, maybe you're curious about tech, maybe you're interested, you're fascinated about tech, and you have doubt about yourself, right? So it's about turning that doubt into drive, right? So my goal for you guys is by the end of this session is to walk away with a lot more confidence, a lot more clarity with your career, right? It's reframing non-traditional paths and embracing the very things that make your journey different, right? So today we actually have a special guest spotlight appearance, right? We have Simphiwe Radebe. It's going to be a super interesting segment, right? He's got a really fascinating story. So definitely stay tuned for that segment. I promise you're going to walk away feeling very inspired. All right. So yeah, I think let's actually just jump into, like, a quick recap, a quick update for this month's town hall, right? So yeah, I think we'll basically jump into the next segment right now. We'll have Harjot come over. He'll give some updates, and then after that, I'll also walk through some of the other updates that I'd love to share this month, and we'll quickly get into the spotlight session with Simphiwe Radebe. So yeah, Harjot, welcome onto stage.
Thanks a lot, Akhil. And hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a lovely week. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who has joined our referrer program. So, if you all remember, in the last town hall, we launched the referrer program, and I'd like to thank the 40 plus people that have joined. Um, so so basically, for the past week, the referral program wasn't working. The application form was changed. We made quite a few upgrades on the application form, so the referral program was with the referral code wasn't really being accepted there, but that has been resolved. So you can go ahead and keep sharing your referral codes, and keep earning those 2000 rands and helping people get into the tech career. So just a reminder that if someone uses your referral code to sign up or join Zaio, they basically get 1,000 rand off from their bootcamp fee, and you earn 2,000 rand for that particular referral after they've stayed enrolled and completed the first 30 days of the course. So the next thing I want to speak about, it's Youth Month. So we're hosting a youth workshop and a youth day workshops, and the theme of this particular workshop is basically building your website using no code. So basically utilizing the AI tools. So you must be hearing a lot about Cursor, Lovable, a whole bunch of AI tools, but how do you use them? How can you actually achieve in building a website without actually diving into in-depth code? That's the whole theme about the workshop. We'll be expressing our creativity. We'll basically the entire goal is to show you how can we build a website using AI and utilizing AI to fast track and improve your coding skills. So it's a 1 hour workshop. Anyone can join. So anyone who's interested in learning how to code yourselves, you must definitely join. And yeah, that's basically what the workshop is about. The workshop is on the 26th of June, and the time is at 7 o'clock. We'll send an email to everyone who wants to be attending, and the link will be on the Discord community as well. So that's pretty much from my side.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Harjot. I think lots of exciting things planned. AI is just booming so rapidly. And as a developer, I've just been enjoying so much. So I think it's an incredible opportunity for people who are actually pursuing tech as a career. So, guys, for those of you who are just tuning in, It's your host, Akhil Bodu, COO and co founder at Zaio. Today's topic is basically about owning your story, right? Confidence, identity, and growth in tech, right? So, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We just a reminder, we have a special guest spotlight appearance today, Simphiwe Radebe, with a really fascinating story. Top 15 young geeks, right? I think that's something I'm really excited about. So definitely stay tuned for that, right? So yeah, I think I'd love to just maybe give some updates around tech and placements, right? So basically, we have built an internal tool that will help us, place more of our youth, whoever is going through our boot camps, and all of our different B2B part relations. We've actually built an internal tool to help us streamline that. So I think that's something that's really exciting. Maybe we could do a demo in the next upcoming town hall session, right? We also have built, like Harjot mentioned, we updated our applications portal. And now we are able to directly plug in our referral codes over there. So that's really exciting. Also, lots of internal tools built over there to bring you guys the best experience. And we've also made further developments on our product. Last month, Asif demoed, our chat in context editor while you're learning, right, and attempting coding challenges. So we've further developed that. So I think there's a lot of exciting updates to help you guys, to help whoever is actually part of our boot camps, and also a grand, mighty welcome to all of the new entrants into our recent full stack and data science bootcamp. If you guys are still interested in, if we have anybody over here who's interested in joining, our next upcoming bootcamp, it is a cybersecurity bootcamp, which is actually starting, I think, 10 days from now. So I think that's also a really great opportunity. If you guys are interested, right? So yeah, without further ado, I think let's jump into the segment that I've been most excited about, which is to basically speak to Simphiwe Radebe, right? I mean, in the spirit of Youth Month, I think we couldn't have found a better guest than Simphiwe. Just a little quick intro about Simphiwe, right? He's a self-taught software developer, right, who began his journey at just 14, right? So from building his school's website at 16 to becoming one of South Africa's top 15 young geeks, right? Simphiwe basically embodies the spirit of the theme today, which is all about owning your identity and like growing in tech, right? So he's going to share his story. I want to keep it raw. I also don't know too much about Simphiwe, so for me, I'm like super curious about his journey, and I think in the spirit of Youth Month, I think it's going to be a really exciting thing for everybody tuning in. All right, so if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments, right? Feel free to also like this video, give it a share. Somebody could get inspired by that action and life could change. So yeah, I'm going to bring Simphiwe onto the stage now. Hey Simphiwe, how's it going?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, man. Thank you so much for tuning in on a Thursday evening.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, sweet. So I think for all of our guests who are tuning in, maybe you want to give us like an introduction about yourself, a little background. Who is Simphiwe?
Okay, so hi guys. I'm Simphiwe Radebe, and I am 22, software developer. So who is Simphiwe? Where did I start? Simphiwe is just a developer who started coding at the age of 14, like Akhil said, and I've just been coding since. I've got the passion of coding at 14, created websites, games, apps, and I'm where I'm at today from me just having persistence in watching YouTube. I am self-taught, and I've just been learning every day, learning new things, and yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Simphiwe. I think it's a really cool story, right? Like, coding at the age of 14, man. Like, I feel like looking back, I actually feel I really wish I did that. I started very late. Like, I actually started when I was in university. So I'm just curious, like, at the age of 14, right? Myself, for example, I was like playing cricket, soccer. I was pretty like disconnected. I didn't have clarity of what I wanted to do with life. So at such a young age, at 14, what made you feel like you could become a developer?
So I'm definitely was the same. I was playing games, playing soccer with friends. I was a person that was going out playing with friends. But the way it started is I was at church doing parking security. I was serving, and my mentor, who's currently my mentor, had introduced me to HTML, and he gave me resources. So him giving me resources sparked the interest in actually me getting a website, because the resources he gave me was for HTML. And after doing my first website, publishing it onto the net, that just was like, okay, you can do this. So what else can't you do? So after doing that, it's just a matter of me doing research and finding out that instead of just HTML, you've got your CSS, you've got your JavaScript, and then you start playing around, watching more YouTube on how these things actually work, and actually developing more than just static web apps.
No, this is amazing, man. Like it's very like it's so cool that you were able to stumble across this at such a young age, right? I think I loved one of the points you covered, which is mentorship, right? I think that is, I would say it's one of the most underestimated reasons for success in someone's career, right? Like having somebody who has a ton of experience who could be your mentor. I think that is something that you're very lucky to actually stumble across, so that's really amazing, man. I think one of the things that was mentioned to me was you actually built like a school website, when you were 16, right? So like how did that happen? Did you like finesse into your school and tell them that, yo, you guys need a website? Like, how, tell us the story, man.
Okay, so the way it happened is obviously after learning how to code at the age of 14, 15 years in grade 10. And then at 16, I was in grade 11. So when I was at school, me and my friends were just like, actually, man, the school doesn't have a website. And I started learning HTML. So I was like, cool, let me approach the school. Went to the principal and told him, hey, I can build you guys websites free of charge. Let's do it. And I started telling them what are the requirements. We need a domain, we need hosting, we need this and that. So I obviously charged them for that specific stuff, but
Yeah.
the rest, actual development of the actual website, I didn't. So they were very happy because they saw some young kid wanting to do their website. So as we started discussing doing the website, they came back to me and said, okay, cool, what do you need? What's information you need? Pictures. So I was always in the office almost all the time, getting pictures, getting information about the school, and what can we actually add onto the website. And yeah, we got to a point where we actually finished the site. Principal was very happy with it. And then came time to actually pay for the domain and the hosting. And I just got ghosted from there.
No way. Oh my
I'm telling
gosh.
you. Uh, so they didn't pay for it, but that was just a learning experience. But that now
Yeah.
brought on media attention because they had ended up calling my local newspaper, Southern Korea, to actually come do an actual article about me that I created a website at 16. And just from that just started the entire journey of me creating more solutions, solving problems.
Wow, dude, that's amazing, right? Like I think one of the takeaways over here for like any viewer is that like you don't, like obviously you should get paid for what you do, but sometimes when you're just chasing experience, and you're chasing excellence, right? You're trying to build something, put yourself out there, especially as a beginner, you never know what opportunities you could actually attract, like in your story, right? No, that's incredible, man. I think I'd love to actually know more about like what is the first project where maybe give us a little clarity so about your actual learning experience, right? Like you did mention that you were like scavenging YouTube videos. I'm sure you went through tutorial purgatory where like you're just like watching video after video and you think you're making progress, but then you get stuck in with a bug and it's like it's a very chaotic learning experience, right? So maybe
Yes.
tell us a little bit about like your learning journey that actually led to earning your first rand.
Okay, so the first application, this is an application I've never spoke about actually when I speak on my story, but that application was an app that gave me the most hell, if I can put it bluntly. So this was an app that a firefighter asked me to create for them, where they can get a location of fire hydrants in areas, wherever they are, they can at least see that if I'm responding to this area, I can see this fire hydrant. Now, obviously, you just look at like, okay, no, I just need to get locations. But getting into the deeper part of it is you need to now learn the Google Maps API. How do you
Yeah.
now work with geocoding, geolocation of the firefighter, as well as having all those locations? Where do you store them? How do you store them? So there was no particular tutorial, obviously, because at the time I was still learning. No tutorial that was going to give me that entire app, right? So you now have to learn things piece by piece. You need to say, okay, how do I now learn how to geocode? How do I now learn how to actually create this interface? How do I now learn how to actually save this data on a database and all that? And yeah, that app did not go anywhere. The reason I remember it is because on the recent live, I actually showed my viewers all the past projects that I have on my GitHub. And I saw that app was just like, that's still there. So I just remember that that app was just not the greatest. But those are the beginning, the processes that actually took me to where I'm at, because I started
Yeah.
learning more. Okay, now I was exposed to Google Maps API, and
Yeah.
then as well as websites as well. The website, I did a few websites after the school one where people thought, oh no, you can do websites, but I was still charging just for the domain fees and the hosting fees, and I was never getting money for myself. But
Really?
it was
Okay.
just a part of me getting my projects out there. You know how people just say, I'm just getting myself out there. That was my thinking at the time.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of maturity. And I mean, look, as somebody who's starting out, I think especially if you're young, that's actually a strong asset, right? Because you have such a long way to go in your career, right? You're not in any rush to kind of start earning an income, right? Like you can focus on like you said, pushing yourself out there, right? Before you actually start earning an income, man. Like it's amazing. Yeah, it's as devs we always go through that one project which just tortures you inside out. But hey, like I think that's how you grow, right? So I think, yeah, I mean, like, just coming on this topic, right, while we're talking about this, that like your learning experience, like you learned most by actually doing projects, or like would you like to add anything to that?
So I definitely learned most by doing projects, because I practically saw that a function does this, as just as a quick example, that I saw that if I write a function, this is what it does. So when
Yeah.
I started doing my own projects from watching tutorials, that's where I started piecing things together, that okay, if I need to do a button, this is how I do a button. If I need to do this, because I practically saw it. So as you're coding along and you're starting to see your progress, you start seeing that, oh, what I just added implemented this. Okay, so that was my way of learning. I couldn't learn by reading docs or anything. If I had to read the docs, obviously now, yes, now I feel like it's much better to actually read docs, but at the time I just have to implement, see what this
Yeah.
person done on my PC, working, running, then let me now implement it myself and use those same methods to do something similar or different.
Wow. Yeah, no, I completely relate to that, man. Like I think that's how we actually built Zaio's pedagogy, right? Like our learning methodology is very much like at the heart of it, it's all about actually building experience, right? And the best way to build experience is to actually build projects, right? So as part of our, like, our job preparation workshops, something that we encourage our students to do is to actually look at a project that they could take up, like somebody, helping your uncle with his store, right? And helping build an app for a friend's family, right? So I think that's the kind of thing that you start off with, and it's kind of amazing how, like, you learn so much just by going through a project. Like, yes, you get stuck, it's a roller coaster of emotions, right? Like you get really stuck, you feel low, you're trying to fix this thing, maybe you go to sleep, maybe you don't go to sleep, right? You're just like trying to crack this bug, but then you wake up with the solution and you're just like at a high again. So it's like such a roller coaster, like going up and down, it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, what would you say is like, your turning point as a developer, right? Like that one project that that took you to like a different level altogether.
Okay, so I'd say there's two that actually did that. So I'd first explain what the projects were. The project that actually did that was the Help app. So it's an application I created for gender-based violence that sends a emergency location to your listed contact, or emergency location to your listed contacts when you just say the word help. So that's doing text to text, what's the speech to text, and
Mm,
then that does an action. That's the base of it. So that project took a while, but that was something very challenging, and I feel like it shifted my thinking as a developer as well as
Wow.
what I can actually do. And the second one that actually did the same thing was Verpa app. Okay, it's not out there anymore, but there's a company involved that was called Verpa. They basically do e-hailing, and they came up to me wanting a fully fledged e-hailing app for Android and iOS. So
mm,
at the time, I didn't know iOS, and that's when I was still learning Flutter. So I
mm.
created the entire application in Flutter, both rider side and driver side, and
Yeah.
that application took the longest time. But let me
Yeah.
tell you, learning and just having that final project out there, that was just so amazing. So those were the two main projects that I feel actually turned my mindset as a developer and shaped me as what I'm at actually today.
Wow, yeah, I think what I'm sensing from your whole like from this conversation is you actually had that hunger, right? Like you were out to actually yeah, I think you were just like you were just really passionate about tech, right? Like, you taking one project after another and you have that clarity of actually what was that pivotal moment for you, you know. I think yeah, the first app that you mentioned, I think there's actually a lot of crazy tech happening there. Like, you mentioned speech to text. Now it's normal, right? Like speech to text, like it's so easy to just like integrate something. But back then, bro, that's like really impressive. That's really cool. I can see in our comments over here we have Akifa who's saying that our first app is like your school photo. It's very embarrassing, but that's how we learn, right? And I completely agree with you, right? Like if you look back at your first project, you're probably gonna cringe and you're just gonna be like, bro, like what was I thinking? Right? But yeah, I mean, guys, if anybody has built their first project yet, please feel free to drop it in the comment, and we'd love to share that and motivate people who are actually keen to get into tech, right? So no, that's really fascinating, man. I think I'd love to find out more about overcoming barriers, right? I think as somebody who is self-taught, you're actually competing with like actual grads, for existing opportunities, right? Like, of course, you people reached out to you, like, to work on a project through connections, but you're actually competing with like computer science grads. So what was like what was that like? How did you handle that feeling of, man, like, will I actually be able to do this? Like that imposter syndrome you feel, right? Because you tend to, like, feel like maybe this doesn't apply to everyone, but a possible assumption here is that you feel like, am I really cut out for this? Especially when you're stuck with like a crazy bug, when you have a client or when you have somebody who's expecting you to actually deliver on a product, right? But you're just stuck with something, and you're still starting out, you're still beginning. How did you actually handle that feeling? Well, firstly, did you ever experience that feeling of like imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so I was literally about to say, first thing is, I'm a Christian, right? So all I did, handed over to God, and He did the rest. But the main thing was, I never ever got scared to say, ah, there's grads and all that. I saw myself as a level of a grad. As an example, when I started applying for jobs, I looked at myself as a senior developer because I started coding at 14. I calculated the years and said, I've been coding for 5 years. I'm a senior, you know?
Yeah,
But I
interesting.
didn't know that it's actually meant for work experience, not necessarily how long you've been coding. But you see, that type of thing of I wasn't scared to actually push myself to get out there. I didn't care that they are giving me requirements to say you need to have 7 years of experience for this job position. Just put my CV there and see what happens. So that
Mm,
was my mindset. As in 2021, from 2021, I was just pushing my CV everywhere, and I did not settle for less. I did not look at any internships. Didn't look at
mm,
junior roles. I was applying at senior roles. So it was a matter of trusting myself, knowing
yeah.
that up that projects backing me, as well as my obviously my technical ability. If someone had to ask me something, I know I can back that up based on whatever I've done. So it was just, yeah, trusting myself, trusting God, and just pushing myself out there.
No, that's amazing. I love how you brought the spiritual element over here, right? Like, yeah, there's, there could be a higher power that's actually, orchestrating this whole thing for you, right? So it's good to place trust in the universe. No, that's really, really, really cool, man. I think like what I'm taking away from this conversation, like, is that you're actually very confident in your ability, right? Like you mentioned how, it's about just owning your confidence, going, like when you're applying for like a particular role, you're not settling for anything less, right? And to do that, it means that it's coming from a place of confidence, right? um, Obviously when you're starting out as a developer, like if we just like rewind back to the days when you were building the fire brigade app, right, the confidence was probably lacking there, right? So how did you get to this point where, like in 2021, that you felt like so confident and you're like, nah, I know what I'm worth, and I'm only going to take what I'm worth or more, right? So how did you get from here to here?
So the main idea was just mastering the craft. So I
Mm,
never stopped doing projects. Even after failed projects, I continued making more projects. As an example, I attended many hackathons, created, solved problems in communities. You know, you look at a problem like, okay, as a developer, how can I solve this? So it was just a matter of building those failed projects to a point where you got to a point where you got a project where
mm,
where you trust that this is what I've actually got. This is what I can do. This is what I can deliver. This is the type of quality I can deliver compared to what I've started with. Even the apps I did when I said I was confident, I looked at them now and that's still bad. But obviously, it's a growth from the Fire Brigade app to the e hailing app to
yes.
something better like the Road app, and now building much better apps, you know? So it was just steps, but me just getting to a point where I was comfortable with saying this is how much I've done.
Mm,
This is what I've learned. The main idea was learning, always the learning. My wall has a lot of certificates from Udemy, so that also built the confidence as well because I've done so many Udemy courses, and it's just like, okay, clearly you're getting a hang of this thing. You know what you're doing, you know. So that was my main idea, and something that also fueled it a lot. That I really think fueled it was all the media attention. So
mm,
if your projects are now being featured on your ENCAs, your ETVs, obviously you're gonna feel like clearly what you're doing is being seen by people. People actually appreciating what you're doing. So that also was a big factor in me just saying I'm definitely where I think I am, and I trust where I'm at.
Wow, yeah, no, I completely, resonate with what you're saying, right? I think the confidence aspect comes from building your craft. Like if you've gone through those nights of effort where you've struggled with bugs, it's not for nothing, right? Like it's at the end of the day, it's building character, it's building confidence, right? And I think that's definitely a strong determinant in actually getting a job, right? So I think you've given like such a golden nugget to the audience, right? I think you've covered one of the main aspects of our theme today, right? Which is about owning your story, like confidence, identity, and growth in tech, right? So confidence, guys, basically comes from building projects, right? Building your experience, right? I think if you find a problem, these days it's become so much more easier to find information online, right? Reading documentation has become easier, right? So I think that path to building confidence is a lot shorter than what you might actually think. So this is really cool. I'd like to shift the focus a little bit now to the media attention side of things, right? Because this is definitely like an aspect that maybe not a lot of developers might get, right? And I think it was definitely a strong contributor to you feeling confident, right? um, but maybe walk us through, like, how did you get that attention, right? You did briefly touch on it earlier. I think you were also one of the top 15 young geeks, right? So maybe walk us through that experience. Like, how did you gain that attention? And what could somebody who's viewing this today do differently so that they can actually get spotlighted and highlighted?
Right. So I think the main idea or something that actually brought the media attention was the type of solutions I was solving or some type of problems I was solving with the solutions I was creating. Right. So instead of just creating your to-do apps and all that, I looked at a problem that is real in the world and created a solution to solve that problem. So obviously, if you are the first person, you created Facebook, obviously people are going to be like, okay, what is this? This is solving this problem of communication, etc, and they'd want to actually see and understand how you did it. And another factor I also feel would have added was the age, because at my age, no formal education. You are frozen there. Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. At my age, no formal education. That also did a bit, because that's like a unique story to say this person learned without going to school. This person used YouTube and at home, from home to a point where you've created a full-on application. How do you do that? So people want to actually understand the story, understand the process as to how you did that. And another thing was actually pushing yourself, like actually messaging these guys. What I did in 2020, I actually messaged the editor for the newspaper for my app that I created. I literally just checked on the newspaper, the number was there, messaged him, told him that I did this, and he was so happy. He wanted to actually feature the story. Then he features the story on the front page, and after that, what I did is I knew that having my story there would bring a lot of attention, right? So I asked them to add my phone number. So my phone number was on there as well. And after a few days, when the newspaper article actually came out, I got contacted by ENCA and ETV, right? So they ended up contacting me. So the first initial step was me pushing or me contacting the actual journalist or whatever to actually say, this is what I've done. Obviously, this is a good story. Because if you don't do that, obviously, how will they find your story? Yes, maybe you might have posted it online, but not everyone's gonna see what you post, because you know how algorithms work. Not everyone's gonna see it. So it's best to actually like get yourself out there. So message these guys. The information is always out there. You can message them. You can also maybe post. Maybe you'll post and your video will blow up as an example. And here you are being featured. So it's just a matter of showing people the actual solution, and then that will spark interest as to the correct or the more correct audience. Let me put it like that. So yeah, the audience that would actually want to actually see what was the actual process to whatever you have done as a developer.
Wow, man. That's amazing. Like, just huge respect. I think there's a lot of hustle that I'm hearing over here, right? I think hustle is something that is underrated, right? I think as a especially as somebody who's a developer, or somebody who's an aspiring developer, mostly they tend to go the traditional route, like go get a degree, after you get a degree, get a safe job, right? But the hustle that you went through, I think it's very unique. I think firstly, like the point that you mentioned is pick a really captivating and a really good problem to solve, right? Something that can make a really positive impact and serve as potentially, I mean, if you're solving a real problem, if people can actually benefit from your problem, that in itself it becomes a story, right? Like you're actually solving something meaningful, right? And then the hustle of actually reaching out to, like, media influencers, journalists, right? I think that is really fascinating, right? So I think for anybody who's tuning in today, right, I think this is another golden nugget that Simphiwe has shared with us, where it's like, keep the hustle alive, right? It's not only about building projects. Like, one of the aspects we spoke about is building that confidence, right? You're building confidence, you're going through, like, tough nights building projects so that you can build your experience, but coupling that with hustle, right? Trying to see how can you get yourself out there, how can you put your projects out there, right? I think one of the approaches you took is you reached out to media influencers, which is like amazing, right? I think it's something that not a lot of people would actually do, right? So like, that's very commendable. And I think this is a great solution for anybody who has a really good problem, especially if you have traction, right? If you actually have people who are using your product, and like it's actually solving a need, solving a problem that they're experiencing. It is something worth sharing, right? I think this is one of the topics that we will also be covering in our next town hall, right? which is basically around building like your LinkedIn presence so that you can attract leads as a developer, right? So I think that social media angle definitely, like, sharing your story of development, how you are going through the process of struggles, the final projects. I think documenting that journey, sharing it, I think it's a great way to also put yourself out there. So I think, yeah, man, that's really, really cool. Yeah, I think for anybody who's tuning in right now, we have Simphiwe Radebe with us, who's basically walking through his story of how he went from learning how to code at the age of 14 to now being a very, very experienced developer. And we touched some really fascinating topics like building your confidence, owning your identity, and growing in tech, right? So yeah, I think I'd love to just dive a little bit into money talk, right? Let's talk a little bit about money, right? Because I think that's something that obviously everybody in the comments, everybody who's tuning in would be very interested in learning about, right? So how long did it go from basically doing your Hello World? I think we briefly touched on, like, the first project where you earn money, but like how long was that timeline, right? From writing Hello World to actually getting paid for your work.
Okay, so let's see. Started 14, 15, 16 was the website. 17, I did my first app. And then around 18 is where I started getting paid for websites. Okay.
Mhm.
So when I was 18, that's when I started charging your 2,500 as just for a website. Yes, if you wanted 5 pages, 10 pages, 20 pages, you know. But I was always shy to charge. I was very shy to charge. Even
Mhm.
if someone came to me and they said, "You tell me how much," I was always shy to charge. I started charging 500 to a point where I got to 2,500 because when I charged 500, I'd pay 250 for your 220 for your domain. Then you're paying a 60 rand for the hosting. Then you've got like nothing left. You've got like change left. So then I started charging you 2,500. But when I started doing that, I wasn't getting clients anymore because they were like, "This is who's this young kid?" Why would
Yeah.
he be charging 2,500 as an example? But it was just building the brand because to a point where if I've got lots of projects out there, I can now charge how I want to because people can see that this is the type of work I'm expecting and it's worth the money this person is charging. So it yeah, it does take time. Don't expect that as you join next your project, here's 500,000. uh or maybe in my experience, but yeah, it's not like just get 500,000 unless maybe you did something so great and here you go. But yeah, it's gonna start small and then you just need to work your way, get projects. Yeah, I really think projects is the way to go because people get to actually see it physically, not just hear it, but see it physically that this person has done this and done that and that, because if you do a project for a business, that business requires that project and that website and they use it on a daily basis, right? And if they're using it on a daily basis, it's always going to stay up. But now when it comes to others, like all the websites I did, those websites weren't being done or used on a daily basis, so no one's going to be maintaining that site to stay up. So I can't count that as a project under my portfolio. So all those that actually are up, I can count them, and the more you improve them, the more you can actually show people like, hey, I built this. So I'm now charging 5,000, or I'm charging 1,500 rand per page. That type of thing. So I've gotten to that type of point where I can now say per page, I'm charging you 1,500 rand, excluding maintenance fees and any of your setup fees. That's the money process, and then yeah, that's the more the entrepreneurial side of things, and then
Yeah.
work wise, the way it came about is, I think, ish, yeah. I started at a good place. I wouldn't say juniors would start there because I got hired for as I was supposed to be replacing a senior, but because of the story and how I presented myself in that interview, they took me in even though they needed a senior and took me in as a junior. And
Wow.
the offer was ridiculous. It was just crazy. But I don't even know how it's supposed to actually be, like where it should be, the amount. but it was a quite a good amount. So I do really, like I said, I'm sure the reason is all the projects I have, they actually do see me as an asset, you know. So
Mm.
I'm worth whatever they're offered. So again, I always, wherever I talk, I always stress this a lot. Projects are quite important. People don't understand, but projects are quite important. Not your everyday to-dos app. I can ask ChatGPT to create me a to-do app, and it will be done in 2 seconds. You know, you need to have complex, real life problems. You know, something that if today Cyril Ramaphosa sees it on TikTok, he'd be like, actually, we might need this. You know, it's just an example, but that
Yeah.
type of project is what you need to be looking at to get to a point where you can now trust or now market yourself in a more valuable manner to say, this is what I have, this is what I can produce, this is why
Mm.
I'm charging this much. Then you can now say, base app 500,000 rand.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, no, 100%. Like I can see Nathan in the comments saying dream big, right? I highly recommend that. I think, especially because you're starting out early, I think the power you hold as a developer, I think it just, especially once you get to a point where you can build good solutions, nothing is stopping you from dreaming big, right? And building something really, really tangible that can create really good impact, right? So yeah, it's you mentioned a really fascinating point, right? I think that is something that I also faced early days, in my career, where I was like, you feel shy, you feel afraid of, like, charging uh a bit much, because you're afraid that you might, scare away a client, but I think the bottom line here is that you got to just know your worth, right? You got to know what your time is worth. You got to know that it's something that is better than, and you should just try to productize your offering in such a way it's better than something that someone would find online, right? Or someone would find elsewhere, right? So I think that's really cool, man. So it did take you about, like, approximately 4 years, right? Like starting at 14, and then I think at around 18 you started earning, and I think that's crazy, man. Like, I think it's really, really fascinating. I think you also briefly touched on, like, how you got into that interview, right? Maybe let's talk a little bit about that whole process, right? How exactly did you, like, you did mention, like, you went crazy applying with CVs, you put what you're worth there, but to actually get hired to replace a senior developer, I mean, that's a very, very rare edge case. So how did you, like, actually go through with this? And please feel free to share, like, I think the audience would really appreciate if you shared, like, some numbers as well, like, your first salary, maybe, like, give us a range or a bracket if you're comfortable sharing that.
Okay. So the way it happened is in 2022 I had applied, or in 2021 I actually applied for one company that was recruiting for a financial institution. uh yeah. So I had interviewed for them, and they said I'm not at the correct level, right? Obviously, I know, because I was just applying everywhere. So it was for a Flutter developer position. Then, I think a year later, I started posting all my stuff on LinkedIn. Like, I left nothing. All my interviews, all my newspaper articles, posted them all on LinkedIn. Every app I did on LinkedIn. I was engaging on LinkedIn. Then in February, I got a message from a recruiter to say, "Hi, we've got an Android developer position open. Would you like to apply?" And
Hmm.
then they gave me the application form, applied, and yeah, after I applied, it was quite a lengthy process, but yeah, February I applied, and then done my IKM tests. I done my projects. The actual project they gave me at first was for a full stack engineer, which I didn't know, and I did it. And then when I had one question day before presentation, they told me they gave me the wrong one, so they had to now give me the right one. So they gave me an extra 7 days, and then
Okay.
finished the Android project, and then I presented it. After presenting it, I actually got a message by one of the seniors there. The senior I was actually supposed to replace, he messaged me on LinkedIn. It's like I was impressed. Like, he was quite impressed on how I explained everything, how my code was, every single thing. And then they came quiet, and I thought I'm not getting in, because I might not make it. Obviously the place I'm at, I just didn't think I'd get there, you know. So few months later in November, I get a call from one of the other companies that I had applied for. It's called Trinity IoT. They told me they want to offer an internship position for me, just opening it up for me, 6 months for 15,000 rand a month, right? So I'm obviously thinking I'm waiting for my company to approve, like to say yes, I can come here. But now they want an answer there and then on the call. They want an answer. Am I taking it, yes or no? And this was the 22nd of November. So
Hmm.
I went ahead and I said, hey, they quiet the site, took this offer, and I started my role as a Flutter developer intern. Then few just 2 days later, company calls me, and here we are. They offered me over 500,000 rand a year.
Wow, that's
permanent,
crazy.
permanent position. Yeah. So
Yeah,
clearly, my application was, I don't want to reveal, but yeah, over 500 as a
yeah,
permanent staff member, and I've been there since. I'm very
yeah.
happy.
Dude, that's like amazing, man. I have like clapping for you. That's incredible. Many congratulations, right?
Thank you.
Um, I think this is a huge inspiration for everybody who's in the stream right now, right? That you gotta firstly make sure you have a strong portfolio, have confidence in yourself, in your abilities, then make sure that you're putting yourself out there on LinkedIn. You know, you're putting yourself out there in various different platforms. Hustle, meet people, contact media influencers. You know, and try different ways of getting out there, and finally apply, and you will definitely hit an opportunity like this, like Simphiwe did, right?
Can I
Um,
just mention from one thing I said?
yeah.
By the way, I was not taken as a senior, just to clarify. Yes, we were replacing a senior, but I was not taken as a senior. Still had to learn Kotlin and all that stuff. So yes, just wanna make sure I've set that one straight.
I think one thing that we can agree on is like the learning never ends, right? Like once you
Yeah,
actually get your first job, whether it's 15K, whether it's 100K, it's like you will continuously be learning, right?
yeah,
And I think that's just an innate quality as a developer, right? I think this is incredible, such an inspiring story. I think it's perfect for the theme, and you probably took you were probably for that role, both positions, right? Like whether we're talking about the 15K internship or the annual 500K plus job, right? Basically, you were competing with like other graduates, right? And there's this like stigma, there's this like notion that people have, right? Where you got to get a degree, and once you get a degree, you can get a job, right? I feel like that has completely changed, right? And a Simphiwe is like a living example in front of us, who was able to crack this opportunity through hustle and pure passion, hard work. And I think that's the reason we do what we do at Zaio, right? It's like to create stories like you, right? Like you actually reminded me of a story I love to talk about, which is actually very similar to yours, to a guy called Jonas. Like he actually started like with the 15K salary, and then he ended up like, at 80K within like a year,
yeah,
so it's just it's crazy. It's crazy. The possibilities are there. The opportunities are there. At the start of this session, the webinar, I said that we want to convert doubt into drive, and I hope this whole session has kind of put that across to you guys, right? Like if you have any doubts, just know that there is a way, right? And it's all about getting into the trenches, getting your hands dirty with code, joining boot camps, right? Like join Zayo's boot camp. The approach that we take is very unique. It's very different. We're heavily using AI as well, but we're also making sure to keep that human touch, right? You can actually reach out to tutors, and tutors can assist you. You can get that mentorship aspect, which Simpiwe touched on very early on, which is, I think, one of the hidden treasures to actually succeeding. You wouldn't have started coding at 14 if your mentor didn't say that, hey, yo, this is like some resources, try this out.
yeah.
So yeah. It's amazing. I think we do have like a few more minutes left, and I can see that there's some really cool comments. Like, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the comments. Right? I can see that something that Akifa mentioned over here is, anyone else create their first app yet? Right? If you guys have built your first projects, please feel free to add it in the comments below, and we'd love to share that story. Right? I think this is a really cool question that Bonolo also asked, right? So how to actually build my first project? I think it's I feel like there's no defined way to do this. I mean, like, what do you think, Simphiwe? Like, how would you like to answer this question? How do you build your first project?
Like you're saying, there's no divine way, but uh, try and look at a simple project or a simple everyday problem in your life. Look at your life. What's something that you wish you could build to actually solve the problem? And obviously now we're in the age of AI. Everyone can use AI. So if you say maybe I struggle to what I struggle to answer my messages on WhatsApp every day. You can now maybe build a bot that will summarize all the messages you got, what's more important, what's not, and you can, you know, answer them somehow. But that's just an example. You think of, okay, what do I have? How do I build it? You can ask AI to give you maybe a project scope, and then you start implementing. So I think this is the best time to actually do projects because there's your AIs that will help you actually think or more refine your actual problems and then help you build a solution. So I think that's the best way I could have put it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's about finding like a really fascinating problem, something that you face or someone close to you faces, and creating a
Yeah.
solution around that, right? But I think before that, it's also just gaining the right skill set, right? So learn the skills. While learning the skills, you will build some projects as well. But definitely recommend you to actually join a boot camp so that you can actually learn your first skills and actually start solving problems, like building AI agents, doing really cool things that we can do in this day and age, right? uh, so here is something from I Am Falcon, right? This is a very interesting one. So till this day, I haven't shaken how I think I'm not good enough, not a good enough dev, right? Even after 5 years of coding, right? I think they might actually be like a pretty significant population, because tech is also evolving so rapidly, right? Like, how do you know you're good enough? Like, what do you think, Simpiwe? How would you like to take this one?
Whew. Okay, how do you know you're good enough? um, One way is are you able to do a project without consulting AI in this, like for now, as an example? How I knew I'm good enough at apps is I was able to create an app without consulting, whatever. Yes, you will have bugs, but do you have that understanding of whatever you're learning? Also, remember, some people context switch. They do web, then now they're doing backend, now they're doing apps, now they're doing whatever. So, are you confident and are you more clued up with a specific programming language or a specific area in tech where you know that if anyone has to ask me anything about this, I can answer this question? I think if you are at that point where you've got the basics as well as an understanding of whatever language or whatever technology in tech you're actually looking at, then I definitely say you are there. And then if you can build it without saying, ChatGPT, how do I do this in this? As an example, you can be good enough at a web. You can be a good enough web developer by creating a website, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, just that. But it's that type of thing of seeing, do I understand what I'm doing, or am I just doing it because, remember what I said in the beginning, where I said watching tutorials and using the tutorials to actually build the app because I was watching what they do on the tutorial. Then I said, oh, maybe this element I can use it in the app. But do I understand how did they actually come up with that element? Do I understand what it's for? Maybe it's not it's something I can't use in my actual application. So that, as an example, is where you know that clearly I'm not there yet because I still have to copy someone's code to get to my solution. So can I get to a point where I can actually do my own stuff while understanding to get to a final solution? Yeah.
Yeah, I think also something I'd like to add on over here is Two things, right? I think the first thing is having mentorship helps, right? It's definitely something that will make you aware of where you're at in your journey. And then I think another thing is community, right? I think that is something like you want to surround yourself with like-minded people who are are all building towards a certain goal, right? So I think that's those are my two pieces of advice, right? I think it's definitely reaching, like, maybe join the Zaio Discord community, right? I think that's a really good place to get started, right? Even if you're not part of any of the boot camps, join there. I think there's some really cool collaborations I've seen happen over there. And get on a call with someone, right? Like, chat to them, see where they're at. You never know, you can collaborate on a project as well. So there's that. And then, of course, I think reaching out, like, it's really easy to get a mentor. I think some people might wonder, how do I get a mentor, right? Like, if you're young, if you have intent, that, hey, like, I really want to do something with my life, and you have big goals, you have big ambition, right? uh it's easy to find like a mentor. Like, you can definitely reach out to someone on LinkedIn, connect with them, request for a coffee, and you never know, you might get like 10-15 minutes of time, right? And you can use that to your advantage, and you never know, so where things could go, right? Yeah, I think this is another thing also from I'm Falcon. So how does one stand out these days? You're battling comp sci grads and GPT rappers, right? Yeah, I think we did cover this in a lot of detail, right? I think it's just about putting yourself out there, right? I think you just gotta, like, hustle, right? Hustle, get your product in front of people. Don't keep quiet about it. Like, make noise about what you're doing. Own it, right? And you are going to attract people, right? I think that it also shows a lot of leadership, right? So I think that's the best way you can stand out. Like, Simphiwe literally took jobs away from CS grads, right? So I think if somebody who doesn't have a formal degree um, can crack such an opportunity, it's like a living example for you that it is possible to stand out, right? But yeah, I think Nathan has mentioned something really cool here. It's like, thank you so much, Simpiwe. Like, your energy is just amazing, right? I think it's been a pleasure having you over here today, right? And yeah, guys, if you guys want to join our Discord community, the link is actually over here, right? We've dropped the link, in the chat, so definitely check that out. And feel free to, check out the Zaio website, apply for our recent bootcamp, upcoming bootcamp, if you haven't done so already. And it's definitely like a great opportunity for you guys to turn it around, right? Turn it around, get out of the, you know, the stagnant life. Like, you are capable of more, and people are achieving a lot, right? So I think maybe okay, there's like one last question we can take over here. So how does one be so efficient? Uh, yeah, I mean,
It
I,
takes
I,
discipline.
yeah, definitely. Uh, I think, yeah. Look, to be efficient, it definitely starts off with just building confidence in your skill set, right? I think you got to be super confident with what you're doing, right? And I think also just leveraging AI tools. I think that is something that's going to really help you become really efficient as a developer, right? And yeah, man, Simpiwe, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, I just said discipline as well because it's also part of
Yeah.
being consistent. So consistency is goes hand in hand with you actually being efficient. So if you're not consistent, then how are you actually moving fast, being more efficient? I love this comment.
Yeah.
That was my chat GPT. When you
Dude,
have a
like,
bug and you search it, you find a
uh,
thread of chat GPT. Yo, it oh sorry, of GitHub code, and you just that
I
was
don't even remember the last time I looked at Stack Overflow now. I think
same,
it's just like
same.
I either go to like ChatGPT or Claude, or like one of the
Yeah,
open source models, and I get my answer there. So yeah, no, this is definitely yeah. I think Dave is also saying something over here where it's like it was really painful, right, to go through that process. But anyways, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in today. I think it's been a pleasure having you, Simpiwe. Thank you so much for availing yourself. I know before this we chatted and we were just like, bro, it's been a long day. How are we going to do this? but I think we're walking away with like some really good energy. So thank you so much, man.
No, thank you so much for having me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Bye.